former President Sebastián Piñera, who is seeking a return to office, walking out of the voting booth in Santiago, Chile, on Sunday. Esteban Felix, Associated Press. Santiago, former President Sebastián Piñera of Chile, a conservative billionaire, on Sunday won the first round of an election to choose a successor to President Michelle Bachelet. Mr. Piñera, 67, who won 36% of the vote, will compete in a runoff election on December 17 against a center-left journalist and former news anchor, Alejandro Gillier, 64, who received 22% of the ballots cast. The biggest surprise of the day was the surge of the left, representing a shift in Chile's political map. Coming in a close third was another journalist, Beatriz Sanchez, 46, who had no political experience but became well known for her acid political critiques on radio and television. Ms. Sanchez represented the leftist coalition Frente Amplio, which was founded early this year. Expected to draw less than 10% of the vote, she won over 20%. For the first time, as of next year, political power will not be wielded solely by the two major coalitions that have governed Chile since the end of military rule in 1990. Preliminary results on Sunday evening showed significant gains by the Frente Amplio in Congress, as well as a stark generational shift and a greater number of women elected as lawmakers. "We've been living in a democracy full of constraints, with the same politicians in government and Congress for too many years," said Patricia Bravo, 56, a drug rehabilitation therapist who supported Ms. Sanchez. "They already fulfilled their role, which was to transit towards democracy, but it is time to change. This election is an opportunity to start anew." Alejandro Gillier, another Chilean presidential candidate, at a news conference after voting in Antofagasta. Televised Reuters. The election, which was also for the lower house of Congress and for half the seats in the Senate, was the first to be held under new electoral rules that limit campaign spending and impose greater transparency. The rules make voting voluntary and allow for more proportional representation in Congress. They also grant Chileans living abroad the right to vote, though only 11% of those eligible to vote in 62 countries registered to do so. Voter turnout was low, about 45%, in keeping with a consistent fall in electoral participation since the return to democracy in Chile after 17 years of military dictatorship. Marta Lagos, director of the polling group Latino Barometro, said the apathy could be explained in large part by a general view that politicians are corrupt and public institutions are not to be trusted. 4 members of Congress have been stripped of immunity from prosecution and dozens of politicians, their associates and relatives are being investigated for illegal campaign financing in earlier elections, influence peddling and other white-collar crimes. "People are disappointed with our democracy," Ms. Lagos said. "Parties and politicians have been totally discredited, and there is a widespread perception that all politicians are corrupt demons, that there is no one to vote for. People want a major transformation of the political system and corrupt politicians put in jail, and maybe then they will get out and vote." On Sunday morning, a group of demonstrators forced their way into Mr. Piñera's campaign center to protest the elections. More than 20 were arrested. In the Araucanía region, about 400 miles from Santiago, the capital, unidentified individuals intercepted a bus that was going to transport voters from rural areas to voting places and set it on fire. In all, 8 people, an ideologically diverse array of candidates, were on the ballot on Sunday. Both the right-wing opposition and the governing coalition, New Majority, had 2 candidates competing against each other for the presidency. Mr. Piñera was flanked to the right by the extremely conservative José Antonio Cast, who advocates building a physical barrier along Chile's northern border with Peru and Bolivia, withdrawing from international treaties and organizations, and abolishing a recently approved law permitting abortions in some cases. Against all predictions, Mr. Cast drew nearly 8% of the vote. Mr. Gillier was competing with a political ally, Carolina Goic, of the more conservative wing of the centrist Christian Democratic Party. The remaining 3 candidates were all to the political left of Mr. Gillier. Ms. Bachelet will finish her 4-year term in March. Under Chile's constitution, she cannot run for immediate re-election. Battered by criticism, sagging popular support and a high-profile corruption case involving her son and daughter-in-law, Ms. Bachelet has publicly vowed that she will not seek any elected office in Chile in the future. A version of this article appears in print on November 20, 2017, on page A10 of the New York edition with the headline "A Former Chilean Leader Moves to the Second Round of a Presidential Election."